see you guys in the dark.
For starters, I've been dating this girl for a while now. Her name being Isabel, going on a year very soon, and all is going well in that regard. However, when we first met, she told me about a less than ideal ex-boyfriend that she had a couple of years before she had met me. They still went to the same school, and he ended up going to the same university as us after we graduated high school. Apart from that, all three of us went to the same church, meaning there was a lot of opportunity for him to meet us. The creepy encounters with him, Jose being his name, started a little before we graduated high school. After he heard that we were dating, he was furious, even going as far as to try and say I was sexually abusive on Twitter. But nobody believed him, giving him his accusation was complete horseshit, and he was notorious for doing the same thing in the past in order to keep Isabel from talking to other guys when they were together. That's just the beginning, though. It started off small at first, seeing him at the mall whenever we would go out on dates, before it was illegal to go outside. After a while, it seemed like a little too much to seem like a coincidence, though. He started showing up to our church, which although didn't really bother me abnormally. He all of a sudden joined the same youth ministry as well. It seemed as if he was trying to get close to us, as much as he humanly possibly could. There was one instance that I remember very specifically. At a grad party everyone was invited to. Everyone was in the backyard, and I remember looking across the patio, just seeing him staring at me and Isabel from the other side. His eyes didn't move, and his breathing was very heavy, as if he was angry, anxious, or even both. He didn't try anything that night, though, probably because of the other people there that night. After I left the party and dropped off my girlfriend at her house for the night, I saw a black car following me for a majority of the way home, which I really didn't think much of. And not to sound like that guy or anything, but I wasn't too worried about it either. I'm fairly well built, and have done martial arts for a little over 6 years now. The next day, the same car was tailing me almost the whole day while I was running errands. Things got a little heated in the afternoon, though. I was sitting in my car, outside of a store waiting for a curbside pickup, when he parked a few spaces down from me, and got out of his car, came up to my window. He started yelling at me, saying that I would never be good enough for Isabel, that she still loved him no matter what I thought, and that he was going to make sure that she and I weren't together anymore. I just tried to ignore him. Starting anything would have probably been a bad move, given that he hadn't even touched me or my car, but I was still a little heated. After heading home, it was already pretty late, so I just played video games for a while till I was tired enough to go to sleep. When I was walking back to my room, I saw him by my window, just standing there on the sidewalk looking right at me. The only reason I knew it was him was because of the light from one of the street lamps. My parents had also seen him and asked me to go check it out, since they weren't the youngest of people and wouldn't be able to do much other than yell at him to go away. But as soon as I walked out, he just got in his car and then left. This happened every night for about 3 days straight. The last night that I ever saw him was not unlike the others, except this time he didn't leave when I went outside. In fact, he started walking closer to me. I didn't notice until he was a lot closer, but he had something in his hand. I couldn't tell what it was, but it looked like a fairly large knife that you would use in the kitchen. Adrenaline kicked in, and I ran back into the house, told my mother to call 911, after which I went back outside. He was just there in the front yard waiting. When I stepped outside, he said, "Isabel belongs to me, and I'm going to make sure that that happens no matter what." He ran at me with the knife, but muscle memory kicked in, and I had him pinned down after that. The cops came shortly after, and I explained the situation to them, after which he was arrested with a couple different charges that I really don't remember. One other thing I do remember, however, was what was inside his car when the police came. They searched his car to see if he had something else that I should have been worried about. They found a bunch of tape, some rope, another large knife, a handgun, and a camera. I don't know what was going on through his head, but I could at least guess that that kit he had in his back seat was that he was planning on hurting me in some way, shape, or form, and then recording it. I hate to think what could have happened if he had tried to come into my house while everyone was asleep, but I'm glad that he was arrested for what he did, or planned to do anyways. I am going to press charges on him very shortly, and I hope that he leaves me and Isabel alone permanently. I'm a small, skinny female student in my late 20s who works part-time as a waitress. It's usual for me to walk home late at night, and my town is not known for much crime. Nothing really ever happened to me here, but sometimes I had strange encounters with customers at the bar I'm working at. It was 4 in the morning, a few weeks ago on a Monday, walking home from my late shift on Sunday. I read a lot of stories, and I'm always aware of my surroundings. I don't like that some customers would know my address or where I live, so I like to walk different ways to my apartment. I was on one of the main streets of the city, but it was very late, and the city is small, and it happens often that I don't see a single person on the way home. Suddenly I heard yelling all over the street. Since I was alone, small, and not really strong, I walked slower and hid behind a wall. I tried to figure out where the noise is coming from, and there I saw them. A seemingly young couple arguing heavily over something, in the middle of the road. I decided to keep hidden since I don't know exactly what's going on. I dialed the emergency number of my country just in case I needed it later. I kept watching because I had to pass this way no matter what, and that's when he grabbed her hair and pulled it heavily. He was beating her for a few seconds, still in the middle of the street. This scene was over quickly, and they vanished from my side behind a big car, still yelling at each other. I thought about still calling the police, but thought that there wouldn't be anything that could be done since they stopped. And if you get involved in something like this, the women sadly often deny what has happened. I was still hiding behind the wall and was torn. On the one hand, there was nothing to report anymore, and the other hand, I felt responsible for the girl's safety. I tried to get a little closer, and the yelling stopped. I wasn't able to see them anymore. After waiting for like 30 seconds, that felt like hours, I had decided to continue walking home because they were nowhere to be seen. Instant regret is hitting me really hard, but I didn't know what this guy was capable of, or if he is carrying a weapon. Weapons are not that common in my region, so I really didn't know. I had to do something, so I turned back to where I last saw them, and there was the girl, already walking fast towards me, hoodie down her face, and she had clearly defensive body language, so I wasn't afraid of her. I could see her realizing that there was another person on the street who could maybe help her. The guy still behind her, apologizing to her. That was when he also saw me, and he stood still immediately. The girl is crying a little as she reaches me. I can see that she is way younger than me, and I try to look as angry as possible at her attacker. The guy gets my look and totally stops following her. I asked her if it was her boyfriend. She told me yes, but only for a couple of dates. She told me that she is only 16 and she has to go home because she is already late. Yeah, a 16-year-old on a Monday at 4 a.m. She definitely was late. Right then, a police car drove by. Also, it was the only car on the road, and the guy scares away. Their yelling was so loud, of course, one of the residents had heard them, was smarter than me, and called the police. The girl told me her name and that she doesn't want to get involved with the police because of her strict parents, and her being way too late already to go home. No one in the police car saw us, and I had told her to go walk home because I want her to get there safe. She is glad, and we walk away from the police car. Dumb thing to do, and I do regret it. I should have insisted that she tells them her story. I know that now. In that moment, I thought it was the right thing to do. I walked her near the apartment complex. It was not the direction that I had to go. The guy vanished after he had seen the police car, and I made sure that he didn't follow us. He ran away in the opposite direction of us. I gave her my number and told her to write me a quick message when she gets home safe, because I do feel responsible for her now. Next dumb thing to do. I didn't walk her to the door. She was naive, maybe a shy girl, and I told her to break up with this piece of shit immediately. By that time, he had sent her like 5 messages and called her a few times. She never texted. I hope that she got home safe and did break up with him, but I will never know. I didn't want her to feel forced to give me her phone number. Now I do regret this too. It was likely just a fight between 2 young and dumb children, but I hate that uncertainty left inside of me. To me, he seemed angry, but not like a serial killer. Maybe she was just too cool or afraid to text me, or she found it not important enough. So, to the girlfriend beating wanker, I really do hope that she broke up with you. And to the girl, I really hope that you got home safely. A few years ago, while I was still in university, I was in a serious relationship with this guy who I thought was perfect for me. My parents liked him. He got along with all of my friends. And frankly, I thought I was the luckiest girl alive. He was on his exchange semester in my city, in about 5 to 6 months into the relationship, he suggested transferring to my city. I thought that that would be great, and helped him out with the application. A few months went by. He extends his exchange semester, and we were closer than ever, even living together at this point. One day, while I was at work during my summer internship, he got accepted into my university, and forwarded the email to me. I was overjoyed, and my friends were extremely thrilled as well. It felt like a fairy tale come true. We then started looking for apartments and making other arrangements for his move. A few weeks before classes were supposed to start, he flew back to his home country to visit his parents. I did the same, and we planned to come back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I fly back for university, but he didn't. He tells me that his dad is really sick, and he has to stay home to take care of him for a few weeks. I didn't think much about it, but then a few weeks later, he tells me that the university emailed him and told him to join in next semester as he already missed out on a few weeks of class. I thought that that was super weird, but then he forwarded all the emails my university had sent him, so I had no reason to believe that he was lying to me. Even though he wasn't attending classes in my country, he could come visit me every month, which was great. A few months pass by. The next semester rolls in. He doesn't show up for the first week of class, and when I ask him about it, he says that he's really sick and will fly in the following week. He sends me his flight tickets, apartment lease contract, and student visa documents. So again, I have no reason to doubt him. The following week rolls in, and he sends me snaps of him boarding the flight. At this point, I'm super excited to come see him, and I go wait for him outside of the apartment once the flight lands. It's been an hour since the flight landed, and I don't see him pull up outside the apartment. I ask him where he is, and he says the airport isn't letting him leave because his visa had expired, and that he has to fly back to his home country. My roommate goes down to the university office to figure out why his visa expired, and they said that they have no records of him as a student at my university. The ex then gets really mad over the call, and says that the university lost his records even though they told him to delay his semester. He tells me to hang tight, and that his dad will fly in soon to sort it out with the university. At this point, I'm super confused, so I go to the office in his apartment to check if he had paid his deposit. Surprisingly, he did, and it was around $6,000, so I thought that there would be no way that he would blow that amount of money for no reason. So I do believe his story, and just wait for his dad to sort things out with the university. A few days pass, and I'm just sitting in my room, looking at his acceptance letter that I notice his student number looks oddly familiar. I open up my acceptance letter and realize that I have the exact same student number. That's when I realized he had forged all of my documents and had manipulated my friends and I into believing he was a student at my university. I confronted him, and he said he did all this for me, and that he would find a way to be with me. Till this day, I can never trust anything the guy says to me. So if you're reading this, I really don't want to talk to you ever again. I moved to a large city from an island when I was 19. It was a completely new environment, as I have never lived anywhere but the island my entire life. Before I moved, I had a great group of friends, mostly made up of girls that I've known since elementary school. I was pretty lonely, and making new friends was proving to be difficult. 4 years later, I'm 23. I had 3 friends. Not so bad, right? I decided to enroll in college and study to be a teacher. I loved my classes and started to make friends there too. I was really excited to meet new people, especially people who shared my passion for teaching and helping children. At the start of a new class, I met a girl named Julia. She complimented my outfit before class started, and then proceeded to roll her eyes at everyone who spoke to her, and filed her nails through the entire 5-hour class, and generally acted like she'd rather be anywhere else but there. This was rather off-putting, so most of us just left her alone and didn't try to speak to her. A few weeks into the class, she suddenly warmed up to me, talking to me during breaks and asking about homework assignments or to see my notes. I'm not a very judgmental person, so I just figured she was going through something, or she was just the type of person who tried to keep people at a distance. We all have our shit, you know? We stayed friends through the next few classes, talking on the phone, going to lunch, shopping, the typical female bonding stuff. She started to open up about her breakup with her old boyfriend, her problems with her current boyfriend, who was our age, and her family. Turns out she had a pretty rough life, and I started telling the other girls in class to be nice and try to get to know her, and that she wasn't so bad. New Year's rolls around, and it turns out neither of us had plans to go out, so she invited me to her house to drink wine, eat, do our nails, and watch TV. I agree, and we made plans for her to pick me up around 5. She lived about 40 minutes away from me, so we could go buy dinner, wine, and snacks for the evening before the streets got crowded or blocked off. She pulls up to my house and texts me that she and her boyfriend James are there. He came along for the ride and was going out with some friends later that night. This was my first time meeting him. I went to get in the back seat, and he jumped out of the passenger side and told me to sit up front, which was pretty nice. We had a good time shopping, joking around, and singing in the car. We were almost back at Julia's house when James said something, I'm not sure what, but it pissed Julia off. She turns around while driving and started yelling at him. James started yelling back, and we started swerving. I'm obviously shocked and a little scared, so I say lightly, "Hey Julia, I want to make it to next year. Eyes on the road, please." She snaps out of her rage, laughs, apologizes, and then continues driving. We get to her house, and she and James immediately start fighting. They go upstairs and close her bedroom door. I busy myself with putting the food where I think it should go, and figure out how to turn on the TV, and basically just sit there for an hour while the yelling gets louder and louder. I'm thinking about who I can call to come get me, but I realize that I'm stuck. All the major streets are closed. It could take hours to get to me, and it was already 9 p.m. At that moment, I hear a crash, followed by cursing. I stand up and consider going upstairs when James comes running downstairs and out the door. I run upstairs to check on Julia. She's crying. I ask her what's going on, and she says that he got in her face, calling her names, and she punched him. I was totally unprepared for this. Who the hell ever is, right? So I tell her the truth. They were both wrong, and they both should apologize and possibly break up. Anger like this isn't healthy. She calms down, and we eat, drink, and end up having a pretty good night. The next morning, James shows up with flowers for Julia and coffee for all of us, and it seems that all is well until they start fighting again. At this point, I just want to get home and forget about all this craziness. I tell her it's getting late in the day, and I need to get home for my annual family NYD dinner. She agrees to take me home. James comes with us. He's suddenly being really rude and cold towards me, but I just chalk it up to him being in a bad mood about their fight. I finally get home and decide not to hang out with her as much. Julia dropped out of school. We still talked on the phone a lot, but rarely hung out anymore. One night she called me crying hysterically. James tried to choke her with her phone cord charger and punched her. I tell her that this is not okay, and she needs to break up with him. She's at his house, and I tell her to call a cab or the cops and just leave. I hear James in the background, and the phone goes dead. I start calling and texting her back, terrified that he's hit her again, or worse, when she starts texting me. She's okay. He passed out drunk, and she's scared. He hid her keys and phone, and she's texting me through her iPad. I tell her again to get out of there, but she says that she's too scared to leave. Finally, after about an hour of silence, she says that she called the cops. He tackled her while she was running out of the house, hit her repeatedly, and ran off once he realized that she'd called 911. The next few days, the cops were looking for him. I'm assuring her that she did the right thing, and that she needs to stay away from him, for good this time. All seems well. Julia's back in my class, though we don't talk as much, and I think that all the drama is over. Then one night, at about 3 a.m., The cops are pounding on my door. Scared the shit out of me. They say they had a 911 call from inside my house. I freak out. My dad's freaked out, and my mom slept through all of it. It's now a running joke that she can sleep through literally anything. Anyway, the cops ask us to check our home. No one else is there, but the phone line is dead. They tell us that people can sometimes hack into the line and make false calls, but to call them if anything happens. 2 nights later, I'm in class, and my phone buzzes. My mom's calling from home, which is odd because she knows that I'm in class. I know she's home alone, so I go into the hall and answer. It's not my mom. The voice is distorted, and it says, "I know where you live. I know your mom's alone. I'm going to end her tonight." I start shaking, hang up the phone, call my mom's cell, and she answers. Surprised that I'm calling when I'm supposed to be in class, and asks me what's wrong. I tell her to make sure all the doors are locked, get the shotgun, and call the police. Someone just called from the landline threatening to kill her. She goes to call, and the landline is dead. I tell her to hang up and call the police. I'll call Dad. He happens to be out of town, and I'll be home as soon as I can. Home calls. Same voice, similar message, but this time he starts laughing. He calls over and over while I'm frantically calling my cousin, who happens to live closest to the school, and tell her that it's an emergency and I need to get home. The police officer calls from my mother's phone. He says no one is in the house, on the street, or in my yard. He asked how many calls I've gotten, and tells me that he'll stay until I get home. For 20 minutes while I wait for my ride, I get 15 calls, all from home. Same voice telling me that I'm going to die. My mom's going to die. My dad is going to come home and find our corpses. I can't even explain how scared I was at that moment. Then I got mad. Really, really mad. The next time he calls, I start screaming at him. "Come get me, fucker. I'll leave my front door unlocked. You think you can kill me? Threaten my family? Fucking do it, and I'll fucking fill you with bullets, you little bitch. Hiding your voice and your number? I'll end you, you little shit. I'm not scared of you." The line goes dead. I'm shaking and crying as my cousin pulls up. I fill her in, and she asked who the hell would be doing this to me. I don't have enemies. People usually really like me. Then it clicks. James. Julia told me that he still had her phone and iPad. James used to call her from random numbers, or her friends when they were fighting, and she wouldn't answer his calls. James threatened to kill her mother and her dog. We get to my house, and I tell the cop I know who's calling. I give him a full name and directions to the house. We went by there New Year's Day, and thankfully I paid attention. While I'm standing there, I get another call from my house. The cop answers for me, calls him by his name, tells him that he's a police officer and he needs to stop harassing me now. The line goes dead, and I don't get another call all night. I sat in the living room until dawn with my shotgun loaded, waiting. My dad comes home the next day. We go and fill out a complaint at the police station. Turns out James is on probation. I called Julia and tell her everything, crying about how scared I was. She got angry and says that James didn't do anything, yelling that I'm making it all up, and I'm jealous of their love, and I'm bitter and alone. Turns out they're back together. I hung up on her and changed my number. Called my school and requested to be transferred to a different campus. Julia emailed me saying that she's trying to call, and that she confronted James, and he admitted that he was trying to scare me because I had tried to come between them. I ignored it, and I haven't heard from either since. So James, let's not meet ever again. Same goes for you, Julia. You two psychos deserve each other. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.